The night sky above Earth looked the same as always. Stars glimmered, planets followed their endless paths, and space appeared calm and silent. But on this night, something unusual crossed the emptiness between the stars. It was not a meteor, not a comet, and not a natural burst of energy. It was a message. A strange signal slipped past pulsars and nebulae, cutting across galactic arms, and finally arrived at the blue planet that called itself Earth. It was a distress call. The signal was old, encoded in dozens of languages that did not belong to Earth. Many civilizations had already heard it, but most chose to ignore it. The call described terror, destruction, and despair. A coalition of alien worlds was under attack by a power so great and merciless that resistance felt hopeless. The words repeated again and again in alien tongues. "We are under siege. To any who can hear, please help us. If no one stands with us, we will fall and the darkness will spread." Most great empires of the galaxy turned away. They did not want to risk their fleets. They did not want to draw the enemy's attention. The distress call echoed in silence, bouncing from star to star, unanswered, until it reached Earth. The Discovery, in a quiet control room beneath the United Earth Space Command headquarters, technicians monitored radio waves, space traffic, and transmissions. To them, it was routine. But when the alien message arrived, alarms flashed red. "Unidentified transmission detected," reported analyst Marin, her voice tight with excitement. "It's not human." "Definitely not." Commanders rushed to the screens. For years, Earth had suspected it was not alone in the galaxy, but direct proof had been rare. Now here it was, an undeniable signal of intelligent life, filled with voices unlike any human tongue. The technicians worked quickly, feeding the data into translation systems. Artificial intelligence unraveled the tangled layers of alien code. The words became clear. The message was not only proof of alien life, it was a cry for help. Admiral Rains, the stern leader of Earth's war fleet, leaned forward as he read the translation. His jaw tightened. "A coalition of worlds, under attack, and nobody has answered?" "Records show the signal has been traveling for some time, sir," replied Marin. "It's bounced across many systems. If others heard it, they ignored it." The room fell into silence. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Humanity had just begun to unite its nations, building ships to explore and defend, not to conquer. Earth's fleet was not the largest in the galaxy, but it was ready, and now a choice had to be made. The debate the United Earth Council gathered. Representatives from every continent sat in a vast chamber, screens glowing with the alien message. The room buzzed with argument. "Why should we risk our people for strangers light years away?" asked one delegate. "We know nothing of them." "If even the great alien empires have turned away, why should humanity step in?" said another. But others spoke with conviction. "Because they asked for help. Because we know what it means to fight for survival. Because if this enemy is not stopped, their destruction will reach us eventually." Human history was filled with wars, struggles, and tragedies. Nations had fought one another for centuries, but at last humanity had united under one banner. That long, painful history gave them something many alien powers had forgotten: the courage to stand when hope seemed lost. The final vote was cast. The decision was made. Earth would answer the call. The fleet prepares across Earth's orbit and deep space docks. Massive ships came alive. Engines rumbled, metal plates gleamed, and weapons powered up. Carriers, cruisers, and destroyers formed ranks like knights preparing for battle. The fleet was not the largest in the galaxy, but it was strong, built from lessons humanity had learned through centuries of conflict. Every ship had layers of defense, fallback systems, and adaptability. Human engineers believed in preparing for the worst. On the flagship Resolute, Admiral Rains stood before his crew. "Listen well," he said, his voice calm but firm. "A message came to us from across the stars. A coalition of civilizations is under attack and they are losing. Others ignored their cry, but we will not. We do not go as conquerors. We go as defenders. We will fight not only for them, but for the principle that no voice asking for help should be left unanswered." The crew erupted in determined applause. Humanity was not afraid. The journey, when the fleet departed, Earth watched in silence. Families gathered at screens, children waved to the sky, and leaders saluted as the warships disappeared into faster-than-light jump points. Humanity's heart traveled with them. The journey stretched across unknown space. Stars and nebulae painted the void with beauty and danger. Some alien outposts watched the human fleet pass with suspicion, unsure of their intent. Others sent cautious greetings. Few believed humans could make a difference. On the Resolute, young officer Daniel Keene gazed out the viewport. "Do you think they'll even want our help, sir?" he asked his captain. "They may doubt us," the captain replied. "But when the enemy comes, doubt will not save them. Action will." The first encounter after weeks of travel, the fleet arrived at the edge of the Coalition's territory. What they saw stunned them. Planets burned in the distance, their skies filled with fire. Refugee ships fled in panic, crammed with civilians. Alien fleets, damaged and scattered, tried to hold the line but were failing. The enemy was not yet in view, but their destruction was everywhere. Humanity sent out a message, broadcast wide. "This is the United Earth Fleet. We received your call. We come to stand with you." The Coalition leaders, shocked, did not respond at first. Finally, a transmission appeared. A tall alien with silver skin and sorrowful eyes spoke. "You are humans? Your world is young. Why risk yourselves? The enemy cannot be stopped." Admiral Rains answered simply, "Because you asked for help, and because we will not abandon you." Hope rekindled. For the first time in years, the Coalition saw something they had lost: hope. They watched as Earth's fleet formed protective lines, escorting refugee ships and reinforcing broken defenses. The humans did not hesitate. They acted with precision, speed, and determination. The Coalition had begged the galaxy for help, and while others turned away, Earth had come. The distress call had finally been answered, and the galaxy would never forget it. The stars stretched endlessly as the United Earth Fleet crossed into Coalition space. Their arrival was not silent. Sensors from dozens of alien outposts detected the sudden appearance of human warships as they dropped from faster-than-light travel. Massive carriers, cruisers, and destroyers filled the void. The flagship Resolute stood at the front, its hull shining like a steel guardian. Around it, smaller ships moved with strict discipline, forming protective patterns. To the frightened worlds of the Coalition, it was a sight both strange and unbelievable. Humanity was young, barely known to the wider galaxy, yet here they were, not with a few ships but with an entire fleet. Across the communication channels, alien voices spoke in confusion. Who are they? Humans? I thought their species was still primitive. Why have they come? The answer was clear when Admiral Rains sent out a message. This is the United Earth Fleet. We heard your call for help. We have come to fight beside you. First impressions. The Coalition leaders gathered on a vast station above a wounded world. Their fleets were scattered, their resources stretched thin. Many no longer believed survival was possible. When the humans docked at the station, soldiers and officers marched out in perfect order. Their uniforms were simple but proud, their eyes sharp with determination. The aliens studied them with mixed emotions. Some felt relief, others felt doubt. They are smaller than us, whispered a scaled diplomat with golden eyes. They are fragile, their technology behind ours, said another. What can they do against the swarm? But one elder leader, whose people had lost entire cities, spoke with quiet hope. They came when no one else did. That already makes them greater than most. Meetings of minds inside the Coalition chamber, Admiral Rains faced the alien leaders. Their appearances varied, some with luminous skin, others with wings, others with tall, crystal-like bodies, but their expressions carried the same heavy fear. One leader, Lord Senra of the Veari, leaned forward. You are latecomers to the stars. Why risk yourselves for us? Do you even understand the enemy you face? Rains met his gaze calmly. We understand enough. We know what it means to fight against a stronger foe. Our history has been full of struggle. We may not have the oldest ships, but we have something else. Resolve. We did not come to study or to watch. We came to act. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some leaders were unconvinced, but others felt a spark of courage at his words. Humanity did not speak like the cautious empires. They spoke like warriors ready to stand in front of fire. The refugee convoys, before humans could prove themselves in battle, they first acted to save lives. Coalition space was filled with refugee ships, vast civilian transports fleeing from destroyed worlds. Many of these ships were old, damaged, and without proper defense. Pirate bands had begun attacking them, taking advantage of the chaos. Human commanders quickly sent destroyers and frigates to escort the convoys. Their ships were swift and heavily armed. Pirates who thought the humans would be easy prey discovered their mistake. One battle was short and decisive. Human ships appeared suddenly, weapons flaring with bright energy. Pirates scattered, their vessels no match for Earth's disciplined fire. On board one refugee ship, a young alien child pressed her face against the window. She watched human fighters fly past, protecting them with courage. For the first time since fleeing her home, she smiled. Doubts from allies, yet not all coalition members trusted Earth's fleet. At a war council, Commander Terran of the Joari raised his doubts. "Your tactics are reckless," he told the humans. "You move too fast, take too many risks. So if you continue like this, you will only bring more destruction." Captain Elena Torres of the Valiant replied firmly, "Sometimes risk is the only path to survival. You've been fighting the swarm for decades by being careful, and you have been losing. Perhaps it is time for a new approach." The room grew tense. Aliens shifted uneasily, unused to such bold words, but others secretly agreed. The coalition had been cautious for too long, and caution had brought them nothing but defeat. Training together to build trust, Earth officers offered to train alongside coalition soldiers. On barren moons and aboard massive stations, mixed units practiced together. Humans taught quick response drills, ambush maneuvers, and electronic warfare techniques. In return, aliens shared advanced energy shields and long-range weapons. At first, the cultural differences caused confusion. Humans were loud, joked often, and sometimes broke strict rules. Aliens saw this as undisciplined. But when the first live exercise began, the humans showed their strength. They fought with creativity, using the battlefield in ways aliens had never considered. When obstacles blocked their path, they adapted instantly. When enemies outnumbered them, they found unexpected ways to turn the tide. A coalition general whispered to another, "They fight like chaos itself, yet somehow the chaos works." The enemy nears while humans built trust, danger grew closer. The swarm, an endless army of machine intelligence, was moving again. Their ships were dark, cold, and precise, like blades cutting across the stars. Coalition scouts brought news. The swarm had broken through another defense line and was heading for the sector where the humans now stood. Fear spread quickly. Some leaders wanted to flee further, abandoning more worlds. But Admiral Rains refused. "We will not retreat," he declared. "This is where we make our stand. If we cannot hold here, then nowhere will be safe." For the first time, coalition leaders agreed to let humanity command part of the defense. The calm before battle as the enemy drew closer. The human fleet prepared. Crews checked weapons, engineers reinforced hulls, and pilots studied the star maps. Officer Daniel Keene walked the corridors of the Resolute, feeling the weight of what was to come. He looked out the viewport where alien ships hovered nearby. "Do you think they trust us now?" he asked his captain. The captain smiled faintly. "Trust is not given in words. It is earned in fire. Tomorrow they will see." Across the coalition, whispers spread. Could these humans, so young and untested, truly stand against the swarm? A spark of hope. Before the enemy arrived, Admiral Rains sent one more message to the coalition. His words echoed across every ship and station. "Many of you doubt us. That is natural. But we are not here to take your worlds or your power. We are here because you asked for help and we could not ignore you. Whatever comes, we will fight, and we will not run." His voice carried strength, not arrogance. For soldiers and civilians alike, it was a reminder that not all the galaxy had turned away. When the speech ended, even the most doubtful leaders sat in silence. The humans were unlike any people they had known. And when the first dark shapes of the swarm appeared on sensors, the coalition realized one truth. They were no longer alone. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. For weeks, the coalition and the human fleet had been preparing defenses, training together and repairing what they could. But now at last the enemy was near. On the scanners of the Resolute, faint signals flickered, unusual patterns, cold and unnatural. They did not move like ordinary fleets. They moved like a storm, advancing without pause, silent and merciless. When the first swarm ships appeared, the truth became clear. They were not living beings. They were machines. Hundreds of dark vessels slid through space, their surfaces sharp and jagged, without symbols or flags. No beauty, no culture, no voice. They existed only to consume and destroy. Their hulls pulsed faintly with blue light like veins of cold fire. Lieutenant Marin whispered on the bridge. "They look dead." Admiral Rains shook his head. "Not dead, empty." Fear among the Coalition. The sight of the swarm ship spread fear quickly. Across the Coalition station, civilians panicked. Refugee transports tried to flee, even though they had little chance of outrunning the machines. Some Coalition commanders argued to retreat further. "We cannot hold them," said Commander Tayran. "We have tried before and we always fail." But others looked to the humans. They had never faced this enemy before, yet they stood calmly. Ships steady, weapons ready. Humanity's lack of fear was strange and inspiring. Captain Elena Torres spoke firmly in the War Council. "If you retreat again, you will only give the swarm more ground. You will lose more worlds, more people. Stand with us now and we will fight together. Stand aside and we will fight alone." Her words left silence in the room. Slowly, one by one, the Coalition leaders agreed to join the defense. First clash, the swarm came fast. They did not send warnings, did not speak, did not demand surrender. Their ships fell on the sector like knives. Human destroyers were first to engage. They launched fighters, small and swift, darting like hornets through the black sky. Coalition ships formed a protective wall, firing long-range weapons. But the swarm did not fight like any normal fleet. Their ships moved with inhuman precision, turning in perfect synchrony, never hesitating. They ignored their own losses, sacrificing ships without thought to crush defenses. The Coalition lines began to break. Panic rippled through their ranks. But then the humans struck back. Human tactics, unlike the Coalition, humanity did not fight with rigid patterns. Their ships darted unpredictably, breaking formation using sudden feints and ambushes. Admiral Rains gave bold orders. "Split the fleet. Draw them into the asteroid belt. Make them chase us," Coalition generals gasped. "That is madness." But the humans did it anyway. Their cruisers darted into the asteroids, weaving between giant rocks. The swarm followed, but their perfect coordination became a weakness. They could not adapt quickly in the chaotic field. Human ships laid traps, mines hidden behind asteroids, ambushes and shadows. One swarm cluster was shredded, torn apart by clever timing. Another was forced to collide with a drifting rock, exploding in a silent burst of light. For the first time, the Coalition watched the enemy falter. A lesson in unpredictability. On the bridge of a Coalition flagship, General Siral watched with wide eyes. "They fight like no one I have ever seen. They break every rule of formation, every law of order, and yet it works." Beside him, a human officer explained calmly, "We are used to fighting ourselves. For centuries, our enemies were not machines but other humans. Unpredictable, clever, stubborn. To survive, we had to learn the same way." The general nodded slowly, realizing the truth. Against machines that thought only in patterns, humanity's unpredictability was their greatest weapon. Small victories, though outnumbered. Earth's fleet achieved victories where the Coalition had only suffered defeat before. One battle group of swarm ships tried to overwhelm a refugee convoy. Human frigates surged forward, guns blazing, forming a shield wall in front of the defenseless transports. Fighters launched from carriers, weaving between enemy fire, striking engines and weak points. The swarm attacked relentlessly, but the humans refused to give ground. For hours, they held the line until Coalition reinforcements arrived. Thousands of civilians were saved. News spread quickly across the Coalition. The humans had stood where others would have fled. Humanity earns respect. In the days that followed, more battles erupted. The swarm never stopped advancing, but the humans and Coalition fought them at every turn. Slowly, confidence grew. Alien soldiers began to cheer when human ships entered their sector. Civilians painted human symbols on their shelters, a mark of protection. Commanders who once doubted them now asked for advice. At a council meeting, Lord Senra of the Vayari admitted, "When you arrived, I thought you would only delay the inevitable. But you have shown us something we had forgotten, that courage itself can be a weapon." Admiral Rains answered simply, "Courage is nothing without action. Together we will make it more than a word." The swarm adapts, but the enemy was not mindless. The swarm learned. With each battle, their ships adjusted, shifting tactics, altering their movements. They began to predict some of humanity's maneuvers, forcing heavier fights. One night, during a strategy meeting, Captain Torres frowned at the data. They're studying us. They're copying our tricks. Rains nodded grimly. Machines can adapt, but they cannot create. They can only copy what they see. That gives us an advantage, but only if we stay one step ahead. The coalition leaders looked uncertain. How long can you stay ahead? Asked one. Rains's voice was steady. As long as we must. A desperate defense soon, the swarm launched a larger offensive than any before. Thousands of ships poured into the sector, aiming to crush the defenses once and for all. Coalition fleets trembled. Some commanders wanted to abandon the system, but the humans refused to retreat. This is the heart of your territory, Rains declared. If we run now, your people will lose hope forever. We will hold the line. The battle that followed was the largest yet. Explosions lit the void like a storm of fire. Human ships darted through the chaos, striking hard and fast, retreating before the swarm could react. Coalition vessels, inspired by humanity's courage, held longer than ever before. Though the enemy still pressed forward, they were slowed. For the first time in decades, the swarm was not advancing easily. The turning point of belief. After the battle, battered ships limped back to the station. Losses were heavy, but the system had not fallen. In the council chamber, the coalition leaders stood together. For once, their voices were not filled with despair. General Sorrel spoke for many. We have seen what you bring, humans. You do not only bring ships. You bring belief. You remind us that the swarm is not invincible. That is worth more than any number of fleets. Admiral Rains bowed his head slightly. Belief alone will not win, but it is the beginning. The swarm can be stopped, and we will prove it. Hope rekindled. Word of the victories spread far and wide. Worlds that had lost faith heard whispers of the humans. Newcomers who fought with fire in their hearts. Soldiers who had nearly given up found strength again. Civilians who had thought all was lost began to hope. In dark shelters and broken colonies, people spoke the same words. The distress call was answered. Humanity has come. And somewhere deep in the endless void, the swarm prepared its next move. For the first time in its cold, merciless history, it had encountered resistance it could not easily crush. The galaxy had a chance again because Earth had stepped into the stars. The coalition station floated above a scarred world, its surface still glowing with the memory of battle. Human and coalition ships returned slowly, many carrying burns and broken hulls. Medical bays overflowed with injured, and crews worked without rest to repair engines and weapons. Yet despite the losses, a strange feeling filled the air, something that had not been felt in years. Hope. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Rains studied the reports. Losses had been heavy, but the swarm had been slowed. More importantly, morale had risen. The coalition soldiers who once believed defeat was certain now looked to humanity with new respect. They finally believe the swarm can be resisted, said Captain Torres. Rains nodded. Belief is the first step. Now we must turn belief into victory. Building alliances over the next weeks, humanity worked side by side with their alien allies. Coalition generals invited human officers into their war councils. Old distrust slowly gave way to cooperation. Humans shared strategies the coalition had never considered. They spoke of flexibility, adapting to the enemy's moves rather than relying only on ancient traditions of warfare. They taught ambush tactics, electronic tricks to confuse swarm sensors, and daring maneuvers in close-range combat. In return, the coalition offered advanced shield generators, energy weapons, and faster engines. Together, engineers fused the two kinds of knowledge into stronger warships. One coalition commander admitted in private, "We once thought you reckless. Now we see you are inventive. You fight as though every second matters." "And it does," replied the human officer simply. The coalition awakens. The change spread quickly. Where once alien fleets fought with hesitation, they now launched bold strikes alongside human ships. Refugee convoys were better protected. Small outposts that had been abandoned were reclaimed. For the first time in decades, the coalition went on the offensive. Humanity led by example. Their ships were often first into the fight, shielding allies, drawing the enemy's attention. Coalition crews, inspired by this bravery, followed without fear. On one battlefield, a mixed squad of human marines and alien soldiers fought side by side on a ruined moon base. When swarm machines broke through the walls, the soldiers held together, covering each other's backs. Afterward, the alien commander declared proudly, "We are no longer separate armies. We are one. A new strategy still, the swarm was vast and powerful. To defeat them, a larger plan was needed. In a great council meeting, leaders gathered. Holographic maps showed swarm movements across star systems. The enemy was endless, spreading like a shadow. Admiral Rains stood before them. You have been fighting battles, not wars. Each world falls one by one, but the swarm does not tire. If you keep only reacting, you will lose. We must strike where they do not expect. We must make them chase us. Gasps filled the chamber. No one had dared to suggest attacking the swarm directly, but Rains's voice carried steady conviction. They believe you weak. They believe you cannot resist. That is why they come slowly, consuming everything in their path. If we strike their supply lines, their command nodes, their hidden factories, we will show them that this war has changed. The coalition debated fiercely. Some feared the risk was too great, but in the end they agreed. For the first time, the coalition would not only defend, they would attack. First offensive. The plan began with a daring strike deep into enemy-held space. Human scouts had traced the swarm's resource lines, giant automated stations that stripped asteroids and planets bare, feeding the endless war machines. The coalition had always avoided such places, believing them too heavily defended, but the humans insisted. Cut off the fuel and even the swarm must falter. The combined fleet jumped in suddenly, catching the swarm by surprise. Human destroyers rushed forward, releasing waves of fighters. Coalition battleships unleashed long-range fire. Together, they tore into the massive station. The swarm responded with fury, swarming the attackers in vast numbers. But humanity's unpredictable maneuvers once again tipped the balance. Mines hidden in asteroid fields exploded. Ambush squadrons struck from behind, and coalition allies pressed harder than ever before. At last, the great station cracked apart, exploding in a storm of light. For the first time in memory, the swarm had lost one of its own strongholds. Cheers spread across the fleet. A message flashed across every channel. The swarm can bleed. Inspiration across the stars. News of the victory spread like fire. Worlds that had nearly surrendered found new courage. Refugee populations cheered in crowded shelters, whispering of human ships that cut through the machines. Soldiers trained harder, their eyes sharper, their hearts steadier. On distant colonies, children drew human warships on walls, calling them guardians. Merchants carried stories of the Earth warriors who had come when no one else would. The coalition, once fractured and hopeless, now began to unite with purpose. Humanity's cost, but victory was not free. Human losses grew heavy. Crews worked day and night, often repairing ships with broken parts scavenged from battlefields. Many soldiers never returned. On the Resolute, young officer Daniel Keene sat quietly, staring at the names of fallen comrades displayed on the wall. Captain Torres joined him. They gave their lives for people they didn't even know, Keene whispered. That is the choice we made, Torres replied. We came here not for reward, but because it was right, and because if we did not fight here, one day the swarm would reach Earth. Keene nodded, his sadness turning into resolve. Then we'll make sure their sacrifice means something. The swarm strikes back. The swarm, angered by their losses, launched a massive counterattack. Thousands of ships surged toward coalition space, aiming to crush the resistance completely. The coalition fleet, stronger now, met them head-on. The battle raged across multiple systems. Human and alien ships fought side by side, weaving through chaos, firing with precision. Every explosion lit up the blackness of space like thunder in silence. The swarm pressed hard, but they no longer faced a broken coalition. They faced a united front, inspired and led by humanity's courage. On one battlefield, the humans unleashed a dangerous new tactic. They lured swarm ships into the gravity well of a gas giant, then detonated charges that sent them spiraling into the crushing depths. Entire clusters of enemy ships were destroyed. Coalition officers who once doubted humanity now admitted openly, without them, we would have already fallen. Bonds forged in fire through countless battles, humans and aliens became more than allies. They became brothers and sisters in arms. Stories spread of friendships formed, of human engineers working beside alien technicians, of soldiers protecting each other in trenches, of captains sharing strategies late into the night. One alien general said to Admiral Rains, "When this war began, I believed you were too young, too weak to matter. Now I see that your youth is your strength. You still carry the fire we lost long ago. Rains answered quietly. Fire burns brightest when all stand together. A new balance months passed and the tide of war shifted. The swarm still controlled vast regions, but they no longer advanced easily. Their resource lines were under attack. Their fleets were slowed. For the first time, they were forced to defend rather than only consume. The coalition, under human guidance, rebuilt strongholds, reclaimed systems, and grew more confident with each victory. Humanity had not only brought ships, they had brought a new way of thinking, a refusal to accept defeat. Yet Admiral Rains knew the war was far from over. The swarm remained enormous, adapting and learning with every clash. We have turned the tide, he told his officers, but the final storm is still ahead. A galaxy watching from afar, other civilizations watched. Great empires that had once ignored the distress call now whispered uneasily. They had thought humanity insignificant, a minor world with no power. Yet now this young species was reshaping the war. Some feared Earth would rise too quickly. Others considered joining the fight. But all could no longer deny one truth. Humanity had stepped into the stars and the galaxy would never be the same. The gathering storm, the galaxy had changed. The swarm, once unstoppable, now felt resistance at every turn. Human-led strategies had given the coalition victories that once seemed impossible. Hope had returned to worlds long abandoned to despair. But the swarm was vast and its cold mind had learned. After every loss it adjusted. After every ambush it adapted. And now it prepared for a strike greater than any before. Scouts reported enormous fleets converging. Swarm ships filled entire sectors, their numbers stretching beyond count. They were heading for the coalition's capital world, Prime, a shining planet of vast oceans and glowing cities. If it fell, the coalition would shatter. The coalition gathered its forces in desperation. Every surviving fleet, every ship still able to fight, was called to defend the capital. At the heart of this force stood the humans, their war fleet scarred but unbroken. Admiral Rains looked over the star maps. His expression was calm, though the data revealed a terrifying truth. The enemy outnumbered them 10-1. This will be the largest battle of our time, he said to his officers. If we fail here, everything we have fought for ends. Preparing for the last stand, the capital world became a fortress. Orbital defense platforms lit up. Civilian transports carried millions away to safer systems. Soldiers from 100 species stood ready, weapons in hand. The humans prepared in their own way. Crews worked tirelessly, patching hulls, loading ammunition, and checking systems. Every ship carried scars from previous battles, but every ship was ready. On the Resolute, Officer Daniel Keene stared at the stars, his thoughts heavy. Do we really have a chance? He asked quietly. Captain Torres placed a hand on his shoulder. We have more than a chance. We have purpose. That is something the swarm will never understand. Across the fleet, similar conversations echoed. No one pretended the battle would be easy, but all knew why they were there. Humanity had not come to conquer, but to stand when others would not. The enemy arrives. The first swarm ships appeared like shadows against the stars. Then more and more until the void seemed alive with endless black vessels. Civilians watching from the surface of Prime wept at the sight. It looked like the sky itself was falling. The coalition fleets formed tight defensive lines. Human ships took the vanguard closest to the enemy, shields raised and weapons ready. Admiral Rains sent one final message across the Allied channels. His voice was steady, carrying to every soldier, pilot, and commander. Today we stand together. Today we show the swarm that we are not prey. We fight for every world, every family, every voice that cried out for help. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outwilled. Stand firm. Hold the line. For the galaxy. The answer came in a roar of voices across every channel. For the galaxy. And then the swarm struck. The great battle. The first clash was like thunder in silence. Beams of energy cut through the darkness. Explosions lit up space. The swarm surged forward in waves, throwing thousands of ships at the defenses. Human destroyers met them head-on, unleashing volleys of missiles. Fighters screamed out from carriers, weaving through the enemy, striking engines and weak points. Coalition battleships fired from the rear, pounding the swarm with heavy firepower. But the enemy kept coming. Every time one ship fell, another took its place. They moved like an ocean of metal, endless and merciless. On the Resolute, alarms blared as enemy fire slammed into shields. "Shields at 60%, shouted a crew member. "Hold steady," Rains ordered. "Push forward." The humans did not retreat. They pressed harder, drawing the swarm's attention, giving the coalition lines behind them more room to fire. Humanity's gamble hours passed, and the battle only grew fiercer. The swarm began to push through the outer defenses. If they reached the planet, millions would die. Rains knew the truth: they could not win by defense alone. The swarm was too many. To survive, they needed to strike at the heart. He gathered his commanders. The swarm is controlled by central nodes. If we destroy their command nexus, their coordination will break. But it lies deep within their fleet. To reach it, we must cut a path straight into their heart. Captain Torres frowned. "That will cost us everything." Rain's voice was calm. "If we do nothing, we lose everything anyway. Better to act than to wait for death." The commanders agreed. Humanity would lead the charge. The spearhead. The humans formed a spearhead formation, their ships clustering into a narrow wedge. Coalition fleets followed, providing support. Together, they surged forward, straight into the swarm's thickest lines. Enemy fire rained down. Ships exploded on both sides. The humans pressed forward, engines burning, weapons blazing. Officer Keene clenched his fists as the Resolute shook violently. "We won't make it." "Yes, we will," Torres replied through gritted teeth. "We have to." Bit by bit, the spearhead carved through. Human cruisers sacrificed themselves, blocking enemy fire so others could pass. Coalition allies filled the gaps, refusing to let the formation break. Finally, at the center of the swarm, they saw it, a massive command vessel blacker than night, its surface glowing faintly with cold light. It pulsed with energy, directing the swarm like a hive mind. "This is it," Rains said. "All ships, focus fire." The final strike, the coalition unleashed everything they had. Beams of energy, missiles, and plasma fire struck the command vessel. Its shields flared, strong and unyielding. The swarm countered with fury, throwing ships at the attackers in suicidal waves. Human ships fell one after another, but the survivors fought harder. On the Resolute, warning lights flashed red. "Hull breach on deck 3. Shields failing." Rains gave the order no one wanted to hear. "All remaining ships prepare ramming runs. If weapons cannot break it, our sacrifice will." Gasps filled the channel. But then voices responded one by one, steady and determined. For Earth. For the Coalition. For the galaxy. Human destroyers and frigates accelerated, engines blazing. They smashed into the swarm command vessel with unstoppable force. Explosions tore through its hull. Cracks spread across its surface. At last, under the combined fire of every allied ship, the great vessel shattered. The swarm breaks. The moment the command nexus fell, the swarm faltered. Ships that once moved with perfect precision suddenly drifted aimlessly. Their coordination shattered, their unity broken. Coalition forces pressed the advantage. With renewed fury, they destroyed cluster after cluster of enemy ships. The endless tide that had seemed unstoppable now scattered like a broken wave. On the surface of Lumeris Prime, civilians watching the skies saw the dark shapes retreat. For the first time in generations, the swarm was fleeing. Cheers erupted across every world. Against all odds, the galaxy had stood and survived. The aftermath. The battlefield was silent now, filled only with wreckage drifting through the void. Human ships were fewer, many gone, but those that remained stood proudly. On the Resolute, survivors gathered on the bridge. Keene sat exhausted, staring at the stars. "We did it," he whispered. Torres nodded, though her eyes were wet. "Yes, but at a heavy cost." Rains looked around at his weary crew. "History will remember them," he said softly. "Every ship, every life given." They answered the call, and they saved more than a planet. They saved the galaxy's future. A new place among the stars in. The weeks that followed, the Coalition rebuilt. Worlds once silent with despair now rang with voices of hope. The swarm was not gone forever, but its advance had been broken. The galaxy had time to breathe again. At the Coalition capital, a grand ceremony was held. Leaders of many species gathered to honor the fallen and to thank those who had fought. At the center stood the humans, their uniforms simple, their faces tired but proud. Lord Senra of the Vayari spoke before the assembly. When we cried for help, the galaxy turned away. But Earth answered. Humanity stood when no one else would. And because of them, we still live. Applause filled the chamber, echoing like thunder. For the first time, Earth was no longer seen as a young, untested world. It was a guardian, a defender, a partner.